Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We are sharing gems from Srimad Bhagavatam and we are on Canto 7. So we started Canto 7 last week and we are continuing from that point onward. And as you can recall, last week we had two verses from Canto 7, the fourth and fifth verse of chapter 1 of 7th Canto. And this is where Shukdev Goswami is glorifying Parikshit Maharaja's inquiry. And we use the acronym EQUAL. E for exalted hearing, Q for quality questioning, U for unified parampara, A for absolute vision, and L for living Bhagavata. And we placed it as a prayer that let our ears be always eager for Krishna's pastimes, let our mindful inquiries to attract mercy and destroy doubts, demon-like doubts like Arjun had. And our hearts humble before our Gurudev, our vision unwavering in faith, and our life a shining example of Bhagavatam's eternal wisdom. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So today we are covering another verse from the first chapter. Please join us in the recitation of the verse. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we are covering Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 1, verse 25. Please join us for the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiryet Shavatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantastohya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagvat Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavti Nashtiki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we are covering Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 1, verse 25. Yannibadho bhimano ayam tadvidhat pranidham vadha tatha nayasya kaivalyad abhimano akhilatmanaha parasya dhamma karturhi himsa kenasya kalpyate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Because of the bodily conception of life, the conditioned soul thinks that when the body is annihilated, the living being is annihilated. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the supreme controller, the super soul of all living entities. Because he has no material body, he has no false conception of I and mine. It is therefore incorrect to think that he feels pleasure or pain when blasphemed or offered prayers. This is impossible for him. Thus he has no enemy and no friend. When he chastises the demon, it is for their good, and when he accepts the prayers of the devotees, it is also for their good. He is affected neither by prayers nor by blasphemy. Purport. Because of being covered by material bodies, the conditioned souls, including even greatly learned scholars and falsely educated professors, all think that as soon as the body is finished, everything is finished. This is due to their bodily conception of life. Krishna has no such bodily conception, nor is his body different from his self. Therefore, since Krishna has no material conception of life, how can he be affected by material prayers and accusations? Krishna's body is described herewith as Kaivalya, non-different from himself. Since everyone has a material bodily conception of life, if Krishna had such a conception, what would be the difference between Krishna and the conditioned souls? Krishna's instruction in Bhagavad Gita are accepted as final because he does not possess a material body. As soon as one has a material body, he has 4 deficiencies. But since Krishna does not possess a material body, he has no deficiencies. He is always spiritually conscious and blissful. Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. His form is eternal blissful knowledge. Sachitananda Vigraha. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa and Kaivalya are the same. Krishna can expand himself as Paramatma in the core of everyone's heart. In Bhagavad Gita 13.3, this is confirmed. Kshetragyam chapi ma vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. The Lord is the Paramatma, the Atma or Supersoul of all individual souls. Therefore, it must naturally be concluded that he has no defective bodily conceptions. Although situated in everyone's body, he has no bodily conception of life. He is always free from such conceptions and thus he cannot be affected by anything in relation to the material body of the Jiva. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 16.9, Tanam avishtataha krunan samsareshu naradhaman shipamya jasram ashubhan ashurish eva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Whenever the Lord punishes persons like demons, however, such punishment is meant for the good of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, being envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, may accuse him, saying Krishna is bad, Krishna is thief, and so on. But Krishna, being kind of all living entities, does not consider such accusations. Instead, he takes account of the conditioned soul's chanting of Krishna, Krishna so many times. He sometimes punishes such demons for one life by putting them in a lower species. But then, when they have stopped accusing him, they are liberated in the next life because of chanting Krishna's name constantly. Blaspheming the Supreme Soul, Lord, or his devotee is not at all good for the conditioned soul. But Krishna, being very kind, punishes the conditioned soul in one life for such sinful activities and then takes him back home, back to Godhead. The vivid example for this is Vritrasur, who was formerly Chitraketu Maharaj, a great devotee. Because he derided Lord Shiva, the foremost of all devotees, he had to accept the body of a demon called Vritra. And then he was taken back to Godhead. Thus, when Krishna punishes a demon or conditioned soul, he stops that soul's habit of blaspheming him. And when the soul becomes completely pure, the Lord takes him back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Please join us in Prabhupada Pranati and seeking blessings from the Acharyas. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum dina taranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. What an amazing verse. So again, just to bring you to the background, this is a conversation between Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj has been cursed. He had been cursed to die in 7 days. And so he decided to fast until death. And he's sitting at the bank of Ganges. Jiva Goswami reveals that actually that is Yamuna. So again, bank of Yamuna. Of course, the Sangam has already happened, so it is also sometimes Yamuna River is also referred to as Ganges in some cases, as in this case. And there Shukdev Goswami appears, and in the assembly of sages, Parikshit Maharaj inquires from him that what is the duty of a man, and especially of a man who is about to die. And this conversation of Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj is later on recited by Sutta Goswami, who was present in this assembly, recalling all the inquiries and all the uh, knowledge that was transferred and all the glories of the devotees and the Supreme Personality of Godhead that transpired in this meeting between Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. He is reciting it at Naimisharanya in the assembly of sages who were performing great sacrifices so as to help the people who are born in Kali Yuga, the current age. So it is very much applicable to our current age, this knowledge. And this knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam, again, this is Gantharaj. This is the king of all scriptures, of all the Puranas. Bhagavad Puran is the king of all. Srimad Bhagavatam is also known as Bhagavad Puran. And here, in the beginning of the 7th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj, after hearing the story of Vratrasur being killed, so-called killed by Indra. So, in reality, Vratrasur was a great devotee. And he was born, of course, Twashta, the sage Twashta, who's an elder brother of Indra. So again, these are a lot of brothers and nephews in this particular story. Actually, there are 11 personalities, of which we focus on 3 personalities in the story of Vratrasur and Maharaj Chitraketu. So today's verse is Canto 7, Chapter 1, verse 25. I'm just giving a little background. So here, King Chitraketu wanted a son. Angira Rishi and Devashi Narad, they visited him, and of course, he got blessed by their mercy of a son. He had how many wives? 1 crore. That's 10 million wives, but all of them were barren. And finally, because of the mercy of the sages, he begat a son from his eldest wife, eldest queen, his favorite queen. And all of the queens became envious that how come, this queen has a son. And so they poisoned the son, and the son, of course, untimely died. His name was also Harshishoka, because when the sages were leaving, they said, "Dear king, know that this son of yours will be the cause of your happiness and distress." And in this case, hearing that, yes, he's my only son, so I'll pamper him a lot. And yet at the same time, when he'll not behave properly, I will be very sad. I will be lamenting. And there may be many reasons of lamentation. So his name was Harshok, but Harshok died. And so the king and queen were crying out. They were calling out. They were weeping. Very miserable, in a very miserable state. So the sages appeared again as Avadhuta Brahman, so uncovered completely. And then they inquired from the king, and understanding that the king is lamenting for his son, Devashi Narad made the son's soul visible. And the soul said, "How many fathers I have had? How do you know who these are? Why are you saying that these are my parents and they're lamenting for me? I have had many parents in my past lives. Which ones are you talking about?" So right then and there, the renunciation arose in the heart of King Chitraketu, and he became a devotee. He took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so much so that he became the ruler of Vidyadhara planets, and from the Vidyadhara planets, the ladies, the apsaras, they were surrounding him, and he was floating on a plane, on a palace, when he saw Lord Shiva addressing the assembly of sages. And where was Goddess Parvati? She was sitting on Lord Shiva's lap. Seeing that Lord Shiva is embracing his wife while he is addressing an enunciate, he smiled in an appreciative way, but Mother Parvati mistook it as blasphemy. So again, when offense is committed, it is not by the committer it is offense, by the person who takes it as an offense. That's how it matters. And here she curses him to become a demon. And so he is born as Vratrasur. Twashta performs this great sacrifice because his son was killed by Indra, his younger brother. So again, a lot of relationships are visible in this case, because Twashta is also one of the Adityas. There are 12 Adityas. And so Vishwarup was killed by Indra, who was actually accepted by the demigods as their spiritual master, as their guru, and he was performing sacrifices. And being part of, his mother was from the demon side, his father Tushta was from the demigod side. Sometimes he would put some oblations in the fire on behalf of the demons also. And as soon as Indra recognized being short-tempered, he immediately chopped off with Vishwarupa's 3 heads. He had 3 heads. And so Tushta became angry and he said, I will perform a yajna to beget a demon who would kill Indra. And so Vritrasu was born. So Vritrasu appeared from the fire and he defeated Indras and the demigods, and they were asking for help. And they approached Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu said, now understand, who's first person killed? Vishwarup. Second one is, Lord Vishnu said you should get the bones of Dadichi so that your engineer, who's the engineer of demigods, he would make a nice weapon out of this, Vishwakarma. So Vishwakarma makes vraj out of those bones. So this is the second personality we hear about getting killed, Dadichi Rishi. So he gives up his body and his bones are being used to build this weapon. And this weapon is very powerful. So Indra attacks Vritrasur, and Vritrasur, lo and behold, in due course of time, reveals how great devotee he is. When I was fighting with Vritrasur, the Vajra, the thunderbolt fell from his hand and he felt lamentation, and everyone was surprised that, okay, now Indra is gone, he doesn't have a weapon. Yet at the same time, Vritrasur said, we do not know what is the will of Lord. Like I have my opinion, you have your opinion, but Lord has a different plan for all of us. So he basically encouraged Indra to pick up the thunderbolt and fight. And at the end, he engulfed Indra. He completely ate him, even though Indra had cut both of his arms. And Indra was still, because of the Vishnu Kavach given to him by Vishwarupa, Vritrasu's brother, Dushta's son, was still protected when he had entered the body, the stomach of Vritrasu, and he used the thunderbolt weapon, the Vajra, to pierce out of his body and cut off his head. So it took him 365 earthly days to cut the head of Vritrasu, but in the meantime, Vritrasu had actually left his body and had gone back to Godhead. So hearing this, Parikshit Maharaj feels that for Indra, Lord Vishnu provided a solution and he caused Vritrasu to die. So he had this feeling that maybe Lord is partial. So he put this inquiry that, is it that Lord is partial to, he is favoring the demigods and he is against the demons? Is that the case? So Shukdev Goswami, hearing this humble inquiry, not in a challenging way, not in a judgmental way, became very pleased. And so that was last week's session. Today we are covering the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And these qualities we'll be covering from the perspective of fact, right? So again, if God was affected by a criticism, as Srila Prabhupada reveals in this purport, then he would not be God. And if God was pleased only by our praise, our glorifying him, then he would be as insecure as we are. These are some facts we can understand. So Srimad Bhagavatam today reveals a shocking truth, right? That Krishna is not emotional like us. He is compassionate beyond us. So that's an important message. And here, Parikshit Maharaj, he's asking this deep philosophical question, right? It's deeply philosophical. That if the Lord is equal to all, why does he punish demons and favor devotees? Because in the first canto, third chapter, we also hear, Ete chams kalapam sa krishnastu bhagwan swayam indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. That Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these other expansions and plenary expansions of Mahavishnus and Leela avatars, Yuga avatars, and so forth, they are just his part, and again, they are his expansions as Vishnu Tattva. And he appears millennium after millennium. Who? Lord Krishna is appearing. Indra Vyakulam Lokam. Whenever the enemies of Indra cause disturbance in this material world, then Lord appears. So that was identified. So sometimes people think from that perspective also. So Parikshit Maharaj is weighing everything, trying to understand, not judge, but trying to understand. So his question is that if the Lord is equal to all, why does he punish demons and favor devotees? This is an obvious question, right? And this also, Shukdev Goswami is revealing at Yudhishthira Maharaja's Rajasuya Yagya. After Lord Krishna, he invokes his Sudarshan Chakra, the wheel, and cuts off the head of Shishupal, who was blaspheming the Lord. He was calling him bad names. So this inquiry of Yudhishthira Maharaj to Narad Muni, where the king asks how the Lord remains impartial while apparently acting selectively, right? The Bhagavatam answers these questions. That partiality exists only in our perception, not in the Lord's nature. So that's an important aspect. We have our perception as how to see things in duality because we are covered by false ego. And that false ego is protected by the intelligence. And intelligence is further encouraging the mind to make us act in that manner in dual state. So today we'll be looking at this verse and taking a deeper dive using the acronym FACT. F is for false ego, yes, because we bodily identify and, the various things that are happening, our Gyanendriyas, our knowledge acquiring senses are gathering, and we distort reality. So here in this purport, this false ego is being identified with I and my. I refers to that I am an American, I am an Indian, I am a man, I'm a woman, I'm a president. All these different designations are related to the body. And whenever somebody has bodily designation, that means they can compare with other designations. And this is where the envy, one of the bad qualities, they emerge. So envy causes I thinking. And when mine is like, this is mine, this is my wife, this is my children, this is my house, this is my car. This is because of the lust. Kam, Krodha, Lobh, Moh, Mad, Matsara. So this lust, anger, pride, and greed, delusion, all these bad qualities, they are causing, but they are arising from I and mine, aham mamiti, envy and lust. That's what is driving. But in case of Lord, it dismantling this particular verse specifically, focusing on false ego, we will be looking at how to dismantle this concept of I and mine, or dismantle this concept of envy and lustful living. So again, A is for absolute Lord. So Lord is absolute. Krishna has no material body and he has no material bias. There is no bias altogether. So we have to trust divine justice. However he acts at absolute platform. And fact, FAC. C is for compassionate chastisement. So again, punishment is mercy in disguise. It's very interesting that in life, sometimes we think, this is a roadblock. No, actually, it may appear as a roadblock, but it's actually a stepping stone in disguise in our life. When we had to, study when we were in school or colleges, we worked hard, we crammed a lot of subjects. That was for our benefit. It was hard, but we still went through it because there was a motivation after it that we want to achieve our goals. So again, even though the goal was a mirage, yes, from material perspective, we realize that no pain, no gain. So we have to go through pain. So sometimes people who take shortcuts, they have to endure greater pain afterwards. So sometimes the chastisement happens as in the case of demons, as is visible. And then, in fact, FACT, T is for transcendental equality. So Lord is equal to all, samaham sarva bhutesh. He is himself saying. So we need to rise above duality to see how Lord is equal in his actions, right? So this particular verse today that we are covering, this gem is beginning with diagnosing the root disease. Yan nibaddho abhimano ayam. False ego binds the soul, right? Because of bodily conception. So what is our thought process? We think death equals annihilation. So the body dies, that means the person is completely annihilated. That's how the bodily conception way of thinking goes, the material thinking goes. You think pain equals injustice. If something causes a pain, we feel this is not just. And punishment equals cruelty. This is the way, but the mindset is material ignorance, not spiritual vision. So that's the difference. We have to contrast it with the Lord. So his qualities have been identified in this verse, that we are deha abhimani. We are bodily centered. You're thinking I and mine with respect to this body. While Krishna, he is Kavalya, non-different from his spiritual form. Now I can understand it's very difficult, for a person who's embodied to understand how someone who's transcendental to behave like that. When we can think of our parents and their nature as how they treated us. So our bodily is in reality a temporary recovery, right? But his body is Sachidanand Vigraha, as Srila Prabhupada, expand in the purport. And we also see it in Chatushloki Gita and Chatushloki Bhagavatam as well, that his body is Sat Chit Anand Vigraha. Vigraha means, again, he has a form, and this form is eternal, Sat, Chit, full of knowledge, and Anand, full of bliss. So in Chatushloki Gita also, we can drive the connection where Lord Krishna declares, he is the source of everything. Aham sarvasya prabhu bhakta sarvam pravardhati. He is giving buddhi yoga to those who serve him. Tesham satadyuktanam bhajtam priti purukam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupyantite. And then he destroys ignorance with the lamp of knowledge. Tesham evanukampata muhamma jnana jantamah nashami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhasvata. So being free from false ego cannot act unjustly. So he doesn't have false ego. And in Bhagavatam also, Lord tells Brahma, nothing exists outside of me. And whatever seems separate is illusion, is Maya. And real knowledge dissolves ego, false ego in this case. And false ego collapses when Bhagavatam is properly heard. This is what the focus of this particular verse is. And Srila Prabhupada once explained that a child cries when the doctor injects medicine. When we all have had injections when we were boys and babies. So, of course, at that time we cried because the doctor was, injecting the medicine. And we may think that this doctor is cruel. But our parents, they know that the doctor is actually saving the child's life. So again, when a doctor is, administering an injection, to a child, the child may think that the doctor is cruel, but the father, the mother, they know that actually the doctor is saving the child's life. Similarly, demons accuse of Krishna of cruelty, that Krishna is cruel. But devotees know that Krishna never acts against the soul's welfare. So he's always looking for the benefit of the soul. He is our eternal benefactor. Yes, I can understand. It is sometimes very difficult to understand, but in reality, Lord is on an absolute platform. We are on a material platform. So we have to change our perceptions, put things in right perspective. So as we go along, we'll take a deeper dive. My Guru Maharaj used to say that false ego binds us to the Lord's compassion, right? Because correction by Krishna is elevation, not condemnation. He is not condemning us. He is elevating us by improving us. So when parents, they discipline their child, when the child misbehaves, it's not that the parents are cruel or parents are punishing or condemning the child. They are trying to improve. They're trying to remove those bad habits, bad behavior. The focus is on not, on making the child feel down, but focus is on to remove the bad habits, the bad behavior. That's why it is said that we should never hate the patient, but the disease the patient carries. So that's the mood of a doctor. The doctor wants to remove the disease, and for that, the patient has to follow two things. Has to be disciplined to live a regulated way, and has to have proper ahar, right? A proper nourishment. So a proper diet. So again, in spiritual world, we talked about last week that this is transcendental surgery when we take to the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so here we see that this bodily concept of life is the basic principle of all sufferings, right? And that Krishna there's no difference between his mind and his body and himself. They're all one. Kevalya. So he has no material body, and his actions are always perfect. It's just that our perception make us think that he is destroying the demons. But in reality, that is for their welfare, as Srila Prabhupada explained the purport also. So punishment by the Lord is also mercy. And as long as one identifies with the body, it is very difficult to understand God. We have to take shelter of Sadhguru and Shastra. So correction by Krishna is an elevation, not condemnation. That is an important aspect. And when we see false ego, it interprets discipline as rejection. This is what we also felt. When we were children, we were being those children who were corrected by the teachers, sometimes even punished and given extra assignments, or have to stay after school to do more work. They felt that they are being punished, but in reality, that was for their elevation, that was for their transformation, that was for the correction, not condemnation. That was not retaliatory effect. So again, that we have to see those actions, right? So spiritual mentality begins when we trust the divine intent. For that, to trust the divine intent, we have to be able to see it through the eyes of the Shastra, Chashtra Chakshush. And this is what this verse helps us dive into and see, as we'll continue to discover in today's Gems from Srimad Bhagavatam. Because God's love is not sentimental love. It is transformational love. It is compassionate love. It is transcendental compassion, as we'll continue to look at. So, which means that sometimes, when we are trying to build things and we don't see it built right, so sometimes we dismantle things and then we build it right and bring it back again. We miss something, we bring it together. So sometimes Lord also has to dismantle us to be able to build us better, to make us better. And that is something that we should be looking, from the right perspective. How do we understand this? Well, we always use jokes, among devotees, and that's a great way to learn. So a devotee just was complaining one day, why does Krishna always test me, right? So his friend replied, because you keep failing the same test. This happened to us, right? The devotee said, well, it feels unfair. Well, his friend smiled and responded, that's because you are grading the exam, right? So false ego wants control, not correction. That is one way of looking at things. And sometimes people feel that, oh, why is God doing this to me? A man was saying, God is punishing me. Well, his friend replied, oh, maybe he's protecting you from worse karma. Well, this makes a man think, wait a minute, if he was not stopping me now, I would have gone ahead with my further plans. That would not have been good. So yeah, he just thought about it, pondered on it, and said, I never thought of that. And so our perspective changes, suffering into mercy. Just like the case of a doctor, he may pick up a scalpel and try to operate on a patient's body to remove the disease, to fix the body, to save the person. So that is material surgery. But in case of Krishna, he is performing transcendental surgery in our very life by giving us various tests, by making us go inside out and understand things as they should be done for his pleasure. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. Why? Because what is our true nature? Our true nature, just like nature of sugar is to be sweet, nature of salt is to be salty. Similarly, our nature is to be an eternal servant of the God. But if we are not serving the God, then we are serving Maya. And what does Maya do? She always kicks us. And that's where misery comes. And we say, oh, this is so miserable. This is so difficult. And Krishna is the cause. You're not following Krishna. You're following Maya. You shouldn't be blaming Krishna. You should actually not even be blaming Maya. Who? Because Maya is only doing, because on our own, Maya is jad, inactive. It is our desires that bring things into action in due course of time. The dualities appear happiness and distress. And what is happiness? Happiness is whatever we desired that happened. What is distress? Whatever we did not desire also happened. So that causes distress, that this is against my will. This is not good for me. We look at it from our perspective, right? So we have to change our perspective. Then we'll be able to see that actually what is a roadblock is actually not a roadblock. It's a stepping stone for me to go higher. Someone asked, why did Krishna kill the demons, right? This is what Patient Maharaj's inquiry is. But he's putting it in a humble way. Well, a devotee replied, because the demon refused to kill his ego, his false ego. He did not, take shelter of Krishna. He was still in his false ego. So basically, it takes some time to realize that, yes, it's important that a doctor performs operation on the patient to cure the patient. So Krishna is killing the demon. So by the touch of Krishna, as the demon is being killed, the demon is getting purified. So of course, that realization follows right after. So either ego dies or we do. One of the things will have to happen. And sometimes we have amazing prayers, right? Sometimes we even think from a material perspective, and somebody could be saying, a devotee could be praying, Krishna, remove my difficulties. But Krishna could reply, remove your misconceptions first, right? And this devotee is like maybe making it very difficult and continuing to argue with Krishna. Well, Krishna would just wait till we fix ourselves, right? So we negotiate with illusion, not truth. And that's why we chose today's acronym to be based on fact. We have to look at facts from Krishna's transcendental vision so that we understand how he is our father. Aham Bij Pradha Pita, he says. How he is actually constantly looking for our benefit. Bhoktaram yagatapsam sarvalok maheshwaram surhidam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, he is saying, Bhoktaram yagatapsam, I am the beneficiary of all yagya tapasam, yagya sacrifices, tapa austerities, and of course charity and all activities. So who should be benefited? All things should be there done to please Krishna, all activities. Sarvalok Maheshwar, I am the supreme proprietor of all material and spiritual worlds. And Sruhidam Sarva Bhutanam, I am the best friend, the benefactor of all living entities. So whatever he does, whether he punishes someone or he blesses someone, from his platform, he is elevating the soul to the next level. Right? A teacher won't try to teach a 12th grader first grade maths and won't try to teach a first grader 12th grade Spanish. They are two different levels. So similarly, Krishna also sees that these souls are at different levels on their way towards him. And sometimes they are going away from him, so he tries to correct them. But he does not interfere in the free will aspect. That is an important, because then it will just be a robot scenario. And we see that Krishna is very careful. Well, a demon once said, Krishna is my enemy. Of course, we saw Shishupal, he was blaspheming Krishna constantly. Even Hiranyakashipu, he was, Krishna is my enemy. He came and he appeared in this disguised form and killed my brother. So, Lord Vishnu, he just, Hiranyakashipu was searching for Lord Vishnu everywhere. He even was so powerful that he entered Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means there is no anxiety. And he's full of anxiety trying to kill Vishnu. But he didn't find Vishnu. Why? Because Vishnu was in his heart. So here Krishna said nothing. He doesn't have to give his justifications why he did what he did. Yet at the same time, we see in the case of Shishupal, he was constantly saying, Krishna, you are this, Krishna, you are this, you are not a Kshatriya, Krishna, you are not a, person. So all of these actually, Mother Saraswati were using the same words to glorify Krishna. That is the sweetness. That the same words are being used with a different meaning by Mother Saraswati, as Shishupal is calling. When we have the king of Magad, Jarasan, calling, you are Naradhuma. So Mother Saraswati makes a little difference in his pronunciation, extends the A part, so that way it means that all men are lower than you, my dear Krishna. While Jarasanga is thinking that Krishna, you are the lowest of all men. But Mother Saraswati, by twisting his tongue a little bit, elongating a specific swer, makes a different meaning altogether. So there is one perspective that one person is cursing, but there is another personality, we see Saraswati, who is praying and glorifying the Lord. Yet at the same time, when we see the case of Shishupal, Jarasanga, and so many other personalities, they are actually elevated from their current platform, from demonic platform to higher. Actually, Jarasanga performed a great service to Lord Krishna. Sometimes people don't realize that. This king of Magad, he attacked with 18 Akshayani armies 17 times, and he was defeated by Krishna and Balaram with a small troop. And what was the reason of Lord Vasudeva to appear? To deliver the burden of the earth. And Jarasanga was helping him by bringing all this burden of the earth in front of Krishna, so Krishna could kill them. And actually, all of those personalities who were killed by Krishna were going to Vaikuntha, because Vaikuntha is compared to material world is 3 times more, and even the material world is unlimited. So you can imagine the material world is comparatively very small when we see Vaikuntha. So even criticism purifies while ego dissolves. That is an important aspect. So why should we do when it's on a daily basis? What can we take as an example? What can we do about this? We can observe reactions, because ego speaks first. It is a tendency of ego to speak out immediately without deliberating on the subject matter. And we should pause before labeling suffering as injustice. It may be Krishna's mercy coming as disguise of pain, right? And we should take some time to read Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, as the whole Lord Krishna is equal on a daily basis with humility. Right? So this chapter grants us humility as the blessing. So the blessing from this chapter is that we become humble, we become fully situated in our true state. And we accept correctness as compassion. It is discipline as compassion, as elevation. And replace why me with try me. Why not me? Please teach me. Once again, be in my life, because that means Krishna has not forgotten about us. So some of the inquiries that we can put forth is, where does bodily identity dominate my reactions? What are things that are happening in my life and they suddenly tend to come out, these bodily conception, I and mind perspective. And where have I mistaken mercy for punishment? Why am I always thinking this is a punishment when in reality it's a mercy? What correction do I resist most? Right? So again, sometimes people are so much bound to the body. Even Arjun, when he was on the battlefield, he was saying, how can I fight and shoot arrows at Grandsire Bhishma Pitama and my teacher, Dronacharya? These are my elders. And Krishna was revealing that actually, Vasamsi jirani yatha vihaya navani grihani taro apranani. So again, he's revealing that just like a person gives up old clothes to wear new clothes, a human being or any living entity in material world would give up their old material bodies, diseased material bodies, and get a new body. He's hinting that what you're thinking is annihilation of these two personalities is actually a blessing for them, because their souls will get spiritual bodies. These are great devotees of the Lord. And it took some time for Arjuna to understand this perspective, right? So What corrections do I resist most? We have to look at this, because that's like judging the exam. We are not supposed to be judging the exam. We are supposed to be taking the exams with right consciousness so that we can pass the test. And Krishna can give us, test at the next grade. And how does ego distort my view of God? How do I view God? How do I view the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So once, now this is from the Western world, once the priest asked a lady, do you love God? She said, yes, I love God. Then he said, do you hate Satan? She's like, no, I do not hate Satan. And he's like, how could you love God and not hate Satan? He's demoniac in nature. She's like, I have no time left from loving God to hate anyone. And that is the true nature. A true religion always gives chance to even the wrongdoers. Sometimes that giving chance also means punishment, but in a compassionate manner, giving an opportunity to serve. That's why community service is a great way of transforming a person. When they see suffering around them, then they realize that they're not alone. And so what we should look at, what would surrender look like in this case, in this world, in my life, right? And so the false ego that creates the illusion of injustice. But once false ego dissolves, the absolute Lord is revealed as it truly is, unchanging, impartial, and eternally compassionate, right? So this is where we come to absolute Lord. Krishna has no material body or bias. So in this verse, we are hearing that we have to focus on his trust. We have to trust his divine justice. We say, when we have US dollars, we trust in God. That means whatever he does, we trust that too. So he has his divine justice is also we trust. It's not that we trust the person, but we don't follow their instructions. Now, when we say we worship someone, or we say that we trust this person, we pray, worship this person, then we have to follow their instructions. And that person should be in parampara, should not be. And sometimes people have this tendency of jumping over parampara and saying, no, I don't want other human beings between me and God. Well, there is a long ladder you have to walk. You don't know what the next step is. So sometimes you need guidance, you need hand holding. Sometimes you need direction, the vision. Shastra Chakshu, you see from the scriptures, from the vision of scriptures. So again, so in the previous section, we saw that how false ego distorts reality. Now the Bhagavatam lifts us by revealing the nature of the absolute Lord himself. Well, the core question being answered here is really profound. My dear devotees, if the Lord punishes demons and protects devotees, does that not imply bias? Right? But Srimad Bhagavatam is responding decisively. Bias exists only where there is a material body and false ego. That we covered partially in the previous, we'll continue to cover it. And that Krishna has neither. His body is all spiritual, Satchidanand Vigraha. And of course, he doesn't have false ego. He doesn't have dualities. So here, in this verse, there are two words. They are decisive in this manner. Kevalya, the Lord's body is non-different from himself. And Akilatmana. Akilatmana is the super soul of all living beings. So therefore, what do we draw as conclusion? He has no material conception, no I and mind, no envy, no lust, no emotional disturbance. He is Atmaram. He is always satisfied. And no attraction or repulsion based on material conditions, right? Divine justice is not emotional. It is ontological. So how do we look at it? Absolute versus conditioned state. What does the conditioned soul thinks? The material body, identifies with material body. Absolute Lord, Satchidanand Vigraha, absolute, transcendental body. Conditioned soul has 4 defects. Imperfect senses, human nature, propensity to make mistakes, propensity to cheat. In case of absolute Lord, no mistakes, no defects. Everything is perfect on absolute platform. Conditioned soul is affected by praise and blame, becomes very happy when somebody praises, becomes very morose and sometimes angry when somebody blasphemes or, calls bad name. Absolute Lord, he is unaffected. He is actually When somebody chants his name, somebody is saying, Krishna, you are this, Krishna, you are that, just like Shishupal, and God is not good. Sometimes people are saying, well, that God is the secondary name. If we directly take the primary name, it's more beneficial. Yes, we all understand that. So he's not affected by any of these praises or blames. It is the person who is purified by his consciousness and context as well. If Shishupal, when he was calling Lord Krishna's name with envy, with anger, can get liberated and get Sayujya Mukti, what about the devotees? We are calling him with love. So, of course, he will get much more benefit because we have the right consciousness and we have the right level of surrender. So, in conditioned soul, punishes to satisfy ego. This is they react. Conditioned souls react. While corrects, Supreme Lord, he corrects to purify the soul, to remove the disease, the material disease that we have. And that's why Bhagavad Gita is a final authority, right? Because it comes from a being without a material body. It comes from Lord Krishna. Bhagavad Gita, the sound of God. So in Bhagavad Gita, in purport, Srila Prabhupada gives this reference from 13.3, Kshetragyam chapi ma vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Krishna is present in everybody, yet untouched by bodily consciousness. This is the acid test of absoluteness. Yes, he is present in our body. He is very close to our heart, right next to to us, the living entity, the soul. Before even our senses know, Lord knows what our desires are. And so in 16.19, Lord Krishna is saying that those who are demons, I cast them into demoniac. Of course, that's the direction they're headed. It doesn't stop them in their journey. So the Lord casts demons into lower births, but not out of hatred. He doesn't hate anybody. It is for their correction. It's not retaliatory. It is for improving them. So again, we look at this verse. In the previous verse, there was mortal mindset in verse 24 was revealed that killing the body means killing the soul. Punishment means cruelty. Pain is not good, injustice. That's how conditioned soul looks at. But this verse 25, it demolishes the logic of asserting. It says that the absolute Lord does not operate under bodily logic. He is performing his acts on a transcendental level. Srila Prabhupada once explained that the sun evaporates water from urine and also from the Ganges, right? And from the ocean, various water bodies. Yet sun is never contaminated. Similarly, Krishna deals with demons and devotees alike. But he remains eternally pure and unaffected, right? His neutrality is proof of his supremacy. So this is very important aspect for us to understand. Because Krishna is spiritual, he is transcendental, he doesn't have a material body, no false ego, he has no defects. While we are conditions, we have those 4 defects. Lord's punishment is also kindness. So we have to see Lord's mercy in a different form. When a parent is, loving or nicely taking care of an obedient son, while they are chastising and disobedient son, doesn't mean they don't love the disobedient son. They want the disobedient son to give up those bad habits and become a good son. So that's what Krishna is doing. And he is not killing the soul, he is killing the bodies. Those bodies are temporarily given to us by Krishna himself. He is the true proprietor, so he can take whatever belongs to him. Who are we to judge on how he treats what is his property, right? So the Lord is equal to all, but reciprocates according to the level of surrender, according to our behavior. And he is not pleased or displeased like an ordinary man. He is Atmaram, he is fully satisfied. So my Guru Maharaj, he would sometimes say that the divine justice works beyond emotional frameworks. Sometimes people have this emotional framework. They look at a saintly person and say, oh, when Srila Prabhupada, he was visiting country after country. Once he was in London and the reporter said, oh, they took a Rolls Royce to pick you up. Why should you be picked up in a Rolls Royce? Because saintly person is supposed to be simple. Srila Prabhupada said, well, actually, they should have brought a golden Rolls Royce. The Rolls Royce that's made out of gold, because I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the God. So I'm an ambassador of the spiritual world. And of course, you don't, go and pick up an ambassador in a normal car. You have to get the very best car. That was a shocking revelation to the reporters. Sometimes it's very interesting that news people, they are sometimes were these backbenchers because they had so much hatred in their heart. They see everything from the judgmental eyes, and they try to influence, the innocent populace with that dual vision constantly. So here, we should be careful when we accuse God, right? A demon can shout, Krishna is unfair, Krishna is silent. He keeps shouting Krishna, Krishna. What's the result? Next life, Vakunta, as we see in the case of Shishupal, right? And a devotee could also say, I'm afraid God is angry with me. Well, another one could reply, then he would stop correcting you. Well, wait a minute. A parent is trying to, maybe discipline me. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So that would be very relieving to the first devotee. Yes, that God is trying to bring some impediments in my way, but actually they are for my improvement, for my benefit. So silence is abandonment, right? Discipline is care. So when talk about tender loving care, it's not just the sentimental aspect. It is to see how we can be uplifted from where we are to a better us. That's what Krishna is doing. And sometimes people say, why do bad things happen to good people, right? Why does God allow suffering? Well, our response is the scriptures reveal that because Lord allows growth. It may sound cruel, yes, but so does exercise to a lazy person. So absolute goodness is not sentimental, it is transformational. And we can look at that judge events by purification, not pleasure. Like real punishment through the lens of eternity. So as we are saying, we have to look at the compassionate chastisement, right? The punishment is mercy in disguise. This is what this today's verse reveals, that accept correction as divine compassion. Right? Material consciousness says, why does God punish? But Bhagavad consciousness asks, why does God care enough to correct us? This section dismantles the illusion that punishment equals hatred and establishes the Bhagavad truth. What is that? When the absolute Lord chastises, he's actually saving the soul from eternal harm, from great harm. So similarly, we see that Srila Prabhupada, he's showing unequivocal, of course, that Krishna is never affected by blasphemy or praise. He has no enemy and no friend. And his chastisement is for good of the conditioned souls. And the key revelation is Krishna is punishing the habit, the behavior, not the soul. Right? So punishment is to stop further blasphemy, to force humility, to purify our consciousness, to accelerate liberation, to improve and transform us towards the growth, towards spirituality. So this is not retribution. It is transcendental surgical, which is Krishna's mercy. And here we are saying that divine punishment is not reaction. It is intervention to help us stop the bad behavior we have because of this concept of I and my. What appears cruel in time is compassionate in eternity. Now, Srila Prabhupada, he explained that when a father disciplines a child, the child may cry, yes. But father's heart is never cruel. So we talk about this, that parents are always looking for benefit of the child. Similarly, we saw the example of Chitraketu Maharaj when he appeared as Vritrasura because Goddess Parvati cursed him, even though he was killed by Indra. In reality, he was the victor in that fight, not Indra. Indra got his kingdom back. But Vritrasura went to Vaikuntha. Shastri means the one in the spiritual world gets the same opulence as the Lord. And so we see things from true perspective, that how Lord is truly compassionate, through chastisements. We see how Lord is helping us. And finally, we come to the transcendent equality. The Lord is equal to all souls. right? So we have to rise above duality. We have to see things from the proper perspectives. Samaham sarva bhuteshu. Lord Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, I am equal to all living beings. And our respiration is through surrender. Yes. So what do we understand, my dear devotees, today in this? F is for false ego. A is for absolute Lord. C is for compassionate chastisement. T is for transcendent equality. This is the acronym FACT. So, Srimad Bhagavatam in this verse, Canto 7, Chapter 1, verse 25, it stands as a philosophical razor separating conditioned imagination from absolute reality and the transcendental reality. Through false ego, we learn that suffering, fear, and accusation arise from bodily identification, I and mine. Through the absolute Lord, we establish that Krishna is Kaivalya. His non-dual spiritual form makes him immune to praise, blame, pleasure, or pain. And through compassionate chastisement, we understood that divine punishment is never violent, but corrective and liberating. Finally, through transcendent equality, we saw that the Lord's neutrality is perfect, and apparent favoritism arises only from the soul's degree of surrender. So together, fact restores confidence in divine justice and humility in devotional life. My dear devotees, we can simply pray to the Lord and seek His blessings. And the way we want to seek His blessings by engaging for His pleasure. And simple prayer would be, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So in today's session from Srimad Bhagavatam, this particular verse, we heard so many revelations, so many depth as being revealed by this verse to understand that we have to respond with proper consciousness from Bhagavata perspective, from Shastra Chakshush. Then we will see Krishna's mercy even when we are driving and somebody is cutting us or we are facing red lights after red lights, because he's teaching us patience. Patience is a virtue. So if you want to be virtuous, be patient. And once you are patient and understand that Lord is our best friend, then our best friend cannot do any harm to us. He'll only benefit us. Again, from that perspective, we take shelter of Lord Krishna, we sing the prayers, and to seek shelter of our Gurudev and seeking blessings from Srimad Bhagavatam, like today's verse, the gem from Srimad Bhagavatam. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki Janant Kote Vaishnav Vind ki Jantai, Go Premanande, Hari Hari Go. Om Tat Sat. Have a wonderful week in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.